Sithabile Mlotshwah, Thamgidi Fund, Mazibuko Ngwalo Phakathi. Within my name lies the very identity of what I am, a daughter of the Zulu kingdom, raised to remember where I came from. My early childhood memories are flooded with stories about our greatness. Stories of warriors and a proud people. Stories of conquerors, so pure that they didn't mix with insects, or people deemed inferior members of society. History, however, also taught me of a shameful side of my people. People who, in a course of migration, not only conquered large numbers of local clans and individuals to expand the Ndebele nation, but also robbed them of dignity. Although a part of my upbringing emphasized a social divide, it was the wisdom of my late grandmother that taught me Ubuntu, and that Ubuntu, Umuntu Ngabantu, which literally translates a person is a person through people. While growing up, I did not understand why my grandmother emphasized on the need for Ubuntu. I equally did not know the impact these words would have in my life. What I can recall is that when my teacher asked me what I wanted to be, I answered by saying I wanted to be different. The desire to be different was something deeply rooted in me, triggered by the unforgettable memories from my childhood, and the shame aggravated by my upbringing. Looking back at my childhood is humbling, because it is at the early stage of my life that I experienced the damage caused by a lack of reciprocity. My unforgettable memories are of the ethnic cleansing that took place during my childhood. I remember soldiers melting my uncle's eyes with plastic until he was blind. I remember the terrifying moments when my parents were hiding for months on end. I remember soldiers raping women and then coming back months later to cut their bellies because they were not allowed to get pregnant. I remember families being buried or burnt alive because they showed emotions when their loved ones were being killed. These memories are a constant reminder of how quick and easy things can change, and how fragile and vulnerable we are. This vulnerability, when mixed with forgetfulness and lack of reflection, can be a dangerous weapon capable of great harm. The words of my late grandmother still echo at the back of my head. They remind me that while life can be full of sorrow, life is equally beautiful, and that it takes self-reflection and humility to acquire Ubuntu. Although these early childhood experiences gave birth to the artist and woman that I am, art is what saved me. Art creates room for mental nourishment, inspires curiosity, reflection, and depth. Although I bore witness to horrible atrocities, I was spared, and thus feel honored to stand here before you today. Like with my culture, where the conquered had no voice, social divide or lack of reciprocity also exists in our societies and in my field, arts and culture. This divide makes it impossible for the new and unfamiliar voices to be heard. The absence of unfamiliar voices in arts and culture result in societies that are in a state of flux. This in turn drowns the power of art and prevents it from achieving the purpose with which it is intended. This reminds me of the late Yvonne Vera, the former director of the National Gallery, who, when she heard when I was leaving my country for Europe, begged me to stay in Zimbabwe. Yvonne feared that my move to Europe would make me lose my exoticness, and that this loss of exoticness would bring an end to my career. I remember laughing so loud at the thought of how ridiculous this sounded. What did she mean by loss of exoticness? And what connection does exoticness have with art? I did not understand why going to the heart of the art world, which to me only added value to my artistic development, would bring an end to my career. I began to be suspicious of Yvonne because I thought she was misguided. I soon understood what Yvonne meant after my first exhibition in the Netherlands. During this exhibition, an art collector who had bought most of my works asked the director if he could meet me. Enthusiastic, the director called me and asked me to rush to the gallery. And as I entered, a man standing in the gallery asked me to leave. As I tried to explain myself, he interrupted me by telling me that this was a gallery and that he was about to have an important guest and thus wanted me to leave. Surprised by his response, I tried again to tell him who I was. But this man was in no mood to accommodate me. By chance, the gallery owner came and said to me, "Ah, you are here already. This is the man who bought your work." To my amazement, the collector then said to me, "Is this the artist? But you're black." I thought that Africans make naive art with toddler doors, saliva, and gum Arabic. The artwork I bought is not African at all. I was expecting to see a Dutch artist. And since when do Africans use oil paint anyway? I have to tell you that I was so shocked and speechless that I walked away in disbelief. It seems that the image this collector had about Africa overshadowed any possibility to imagine that creativity, thought, and beauty could come out of such a place. This sadly was not my first and last encounter. Through this and other unpleasant experiences, I began to understand what the late Yvonne meant by the loss of exoticness. It is due to these experiences and the impact thereof that I propose a new way of looking at art. My proposal is that we look at art from anywhere in the world as just that, art, instead of looking for familiarities or categorizing it. Because labeling art makes it one thing, identifiable and not diverse. To me, art has no borders or identity, but it is rather a mirror that reflects how a creator views the world around them and their societies. When art is viewed for what it is, the viewer is no longer occupied by where the art comes from, but rather by what the artist is trying to put across. In order for art to be a catalyst for change, I believe it to be of great importance to reflect on the present and to learn from our history. For it is in the knowledge of our eras and the need for human advancement that we can reshape the future. It is with this in mind that I would like to quote the words of Marcel Proust. He says, "The true voyage of discovery lies not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. It is in the new eyes that we will be able to reshape a hopeful and promising future." It took me years to realize that my need to look at the world with fresh eyes originated from my upbringing and my early childhood experiences. But do we need horrible experiences to realize that the lack of reciprocity in all our human endeavors is the poison stifling change, innovation, and human advancement? In an era where fear seems to be the currency of the day, art and culture should be in the front lines of where the new can be born. The new, born in our current climate, is fragile, uncertain, and with little hope. More than ever, there is a need to create spaces, critical spaces that nurture creativity, mental nourishment, and knowledge exchange. When it comes to the arts, I would like to propose that we discard the searching for familiarities, but to instead practice looking with new eyes. Looking with old eyes that seek familiarity in the new results in the need to shape information that we pass on, like the way news is usually turned into entertainment. This often trivializes what we impart and the representation thereof. How we give information or view the world is usually connected to what fits our perception of things. Although art represents the uniqueness of the independent vision, the habit of familiarity makes art and culture vulnerable, subject to change depending on who is representing it and which purpose they use the arts for. Looking at the world without boxing it allows us to experience the new. If the new inspires, it leaves a lasting impression, and thus turning us into inspiration for others. This, however, can only happen when the takeoff point is from a reciprocal point of view. While the arts have the ability to stimulate reciprocal exchange, having reciprocity or communicating from a reciprocal standpoint is something else. Being reciprocal is giving and taking in a mutual way. This, however, cannot take place. This, however, is not the case in real life. I believe that the ability for art to stimulate reciprocal exchange takes place when exchange with other cultures begins in a mutual way. Achieving this, however, is a challenge, mainly because the arts are exclusive. This is why I initiated Thamgidi. As you can see, these are some of the activities that we do. Thamgidi Fund uses the arts to strengthen cross-cultural exchange. At Thamgidi Foundation, we believe that reciprocity of cultures, or the lack of it, is the subject which has great impact in our development, in the development of our societies, in the past, now, and in the long run. In order to promote communication, understanding, and to connect cultures, we believe that art plays a major role. It is because of the role of art that I, in 2008, started IFA. IFA is an international, cross-disciplinary festival that brings artists. IFA is an international cross-disciplinary festival and artist in residency platform that takes place in different cities across the globe. This platform brings together artists from across the globe interested in collaboration that facilitate critical artistic exchange and mutual cross-cultural exchange. Cross-cultural exchange creates places of encounter that challenge our knowledge, norms, and value systems. It is in these places of encounter that we can discover the wealth and wisdom that comes from different sources. Cross-cultural artistic exchange therefore makes it possible for us to draw wisdom from many places. For if we only drew wisdom from one source, it would become rigid and stale. In my culture, we believe that umhambi yinkosi, which in Zulu translates the traveler is king. To view the traveler in this way is to acknowledge the value which comes with the unknown, and that a traveler is the bringer of the new. It is in the combination of the familiar and the new that we can gain Ubuntu. Thank you.